it's so lovely to be with you here today. Thank you for joining. And so, Janelle, let's get started, shall we?
Thank you so much for that wonderful opening, Rawiri. And before we get to our conversation, I just want to welcome everyone. And I'm really delighted that you have joined us here today. You've already met our wonderful guest, Rawiri Hindle. And my name is Janelle Atlas. I'm one of the mindfulness facilitators for Pause, Breathe, Smile. The purpose of this session is to support you in delivering Pause, Breathe, Smile in your schools, as well as to share some exciting news from the pilot study of the mindfulness program at a Kura Māori that Rawiri is here to speak with us about today. But before we get to that, I want to just express a huge thank you to Southern Cross for their support of this program and our mission to reach all New Zealand primary and intermediate schools with mindfulness for Kiwi kids. Also, just a reminder that this call is being recorded so that we can share it on our Facebook page afterward for people who couldn't be here live. Due to the large number of participants we have on this call, we've set participant microphones to off, and we are asking you to leave them off, please. But we are going to do a brief Q&A after Rawiri and I have a chance to speak. So I hope that you will interact and ask any questions or comments that you have through the chat box. And again, it's my promise that we will keep this call to 45 minutes or less, wrapping up right at 4:15. Again, thanks so much for being here today. And without further ado, thanks to Rawiri for being with us. And Rawiri, to kick things off, you've been piloting a Pause, Breathe, Smile program at a Kura Māori. Can you tell us a bit about Kura Māori and the different forms they can take?
Okay, kia ora, Janelle. Just to go back, the pilot program was in a Kura Māori, not a Kura Kaupapa Māori, and so there are different ways that immersion education manifests within this country, and I don't want to get into the details because that's really not what we're here about. Just to know that there's the Kura Kaupapa Māori, Kura Māori, Kura Iwi, bilingual units, immersion units, all are based on building te reo Māori and delivering the curriculum through te reo Māori me ona tikanga and those ways of knowing, doing, and being. What was I going to say in relation to that? The pilot program was in a Kura Māori. Kura Kaupapa Māori are generally seen as kura that are more associated with the Ministry of Education and with the curriculum through the Ministry of Education. Kura Māori and Kura Iwi can and do often create their own curriculum. So that is one distinction, but we won't get too much into many more. Okay.
Yeah. So tell us about how you adapted the Pause, Breathe, Smile program for your particular context, for the Kura where you are doing this. How did it go?
Well, I mean, it's a process. You know, the whole thing for me has been a process. The beginning point was what is this project? This project is to look at what do we need to do? What do we need to either change or adapt or have happen within this beautiful program, Pause, Breathe, Smile, so that it resonates more or stronger with Maori kids, and particularly Maori kids in Maori immersion settings. And so there are a number of things that came from the pilot project. But what I will say at the beginning is that, this wasn't about trying to get anything anywhere. It was just about, oh my gosh, that's so interesting. I never thought about things that way before. Or I love the way kids are interpreting this and are going and are working within this. So for me, it's just been this wonderful journey. And it still is. Like, for example, today, I do that 6 directions activity with the tamariki as a mindful movement thing at the beginning of the session. And so just to give you a little bit of a feeling on how things work, we usually start with karakia, and there's a school karakia that we've been working on all year, so that fits nicely into it. But we start So this is one way that it resonates in a Māori environment. We start with tu e tu, stand, or waiwai kia papa tu anuku, your feet to Mother Earth.
Mm.
Tō upoko kia ranginui, your head to ranginui. Ko koe te rārangi wainganui a ranginui rawa ko papa. You are the Wi-Fi between papa tuanuku and ranginui. So what we do, our wiri, everything, our words, our kupu, transmit messages between rangi and papa. So that situates it in an ao Māori context. Then we start, we do that and we do the manahua karakia, and then we'll go into, and of course, part of the whole thing too is that ritual has been so much part of the practice as well, and having ritual so that the kids know exactly what's going to happen. And particularly if, you've got an unsettled class, then once I found that I had one unsettled class and one settled class, but the unsettled class really did come into the whole play, if you like, of pause, breathe, smile through ritual. And
Mm.
so then we would do the 6 directions. But what I just found so beautiful this morning, I asked one of the kids to take the 6 directions. And, I don't know. I just want to cry when I, have these kids take that mana
Mm.
of and for the whole class and deliver, absolutely deliver. It's like so beautiful to be in that zone because you know that they're there with you. If they're delivering it,
Mm.
they're so there. They know what's going on. And I just find too, I mean, I'm just talking wide at the moment, but the way the kids are interpreting the kind of interactions through the different lessons in a Maori way, in a Maori worldview, is so beautiful. When we talk about Maori, and there's one boy there. He's like, here's my voice. I just say da 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 da, and he'll go, "You're Maori," and he'll just finish it off, and it's almost like he's totally in tune with what
Mm.
I'm doing and what I'm going to say. That he says it before I say
Mm.
it.
So Rawiri, you just kind of acknowledged that there were differences between the two classes, and I'm wondering, what you're describing now sounds so beautiful and so moving, and that these kids are, really engaged and really on board. Was it that way from the beginning, or have you seen kind of cultivation and development and expansion over the course of the time you've been doing it?
It was absolutely not that way from the beginning. So the class that were pretty much difficult, had sort of behavioural type things going on. And this sits with the report. I'm not saying what the kura is or where it is, but you know, and for very obvious reasons through the report, around why those kids were in that position, um, made it really difficult. And actually, I was really nervous, right?
Mm.
At the beginning, I was going, "Oh, what am I doing? I'm too old for this." and but I am so. There was one boy in that class when I gave, because I gave us, I do that with the kids and they respond really well. Little tap on the back, and he turned to me and went, "Don't you touch me." I was like, "Ooh," and through, and I attribute this to nothing but the program. He runs up to me every day and he gives me the biggest cuddle. If that's not transformation, what is?
Mm. That
And
building of trust through the consistency and the ritual and seeing that you care. Is that what you attribute it to?
absolutely, totally. And
Mm.
that was a transformation for me. I went from this person who was like, I'm not so much, but what am I trying to say here? I was like many of us and teach. We've got to control this class. They're out of control. To just being able to have such deep compassion
Mm.
for these kids who, we don't know what their background is. I was, things were shared with me about a number of their backgrounds, and they're not easy backgrounds.
Mm.
And I mean, yeah, for me, that my transformation was in being able to let go of controlling or trying to, you know, thing them down to getting, being compassionate about their backgrounds, where they came from, and transmitting aroha really
Mm,
through the program. The
mm.
program was the catalyst for, you know, say about bringing these kids into the program in a loving, compassionate sort of way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. Would you mind sharing from the report a bit about some of the key findings? Like what are the kind of themes that have emerged that are applicable in your setting, but other people might find interesting to hear about some of the powerful or the potent things you discovered?
Yeah. Are you going to share the?
Yes, I will.
So, well, I'll just start with, you know, the use of artwork, and I'm speaking. I gather to an audience who already know this program and are already have or are implementing it. But what I found around using art was, you know, and this may be no different in any class, but it was particularly what I found with these kids was one way to access their atuatanga, their godly states, you know, shifting them from just being little tickle little shits to kind of them being really present to how brilliant they are and how beautiful they are. You know, so for example, uh, when we talked about, say, for example, what was it? Oh, there were most of the concepts that you look at within Pause Breathe Smile. We had little art activity follow ups, and the way that they interpreted those concepts through art to me spoke volumes, because often they didn't have the language to be able to express how they felt or what they
Mm,
wanted to say. And through the artwork and having little discussions with them about, and just praising them, just going like, that is amazing. And, you know, authentically praising them, that is
mm,
like, I was blown away by a lot of the artwork that they were doing.
mm,
Um, so, what else? I've talked about establishing ritual, and particularly ritual that resonates within that. What I want to say here is this project or this program or this trial happened within one Kura Māori. And this is what we found within this one Kura Māori. It's not a template for Kura Māori or Kura Kaupapa Māori to abide by or to follow, but it may give Kura Māori ideas on how they might work if they were to, say, run the program within their kura.
mm,
And so the one of establishing rituals I've already talked about somewhat.
mm,
Um, that notion of fostering commitment engagement is a tricky one, because you want to bring people in. Engagement is that they see something in it for themselves, that they want to do it. Kids have no trouble with that often, and I found that that was quite easy. The teachers were a little bit more difficult,
mm,
but they were, that was interesting as well, because one of the teachers was operating more through her mind, and the other one was operating more through her body and her being, her wairua. And, you know, the one operating more through her being in a wairua had way much more moved forward a lot further than the one who was operating trying to get it right and going
mm,
like, okay, I've got to tick this box and I've got to put that in there, or this is about this, or because to me this program is about presence, being
mm,
sensorially alive in the moment. And the
mm,
more you can as a teacher be that and have that commitment in terms of the program itself and all the, you know, the wonderful taonga within that, the, yeah, in my view, the stronger that it'll land.
Can you speak a little bit more about how you handed power to the tamariki? Like, how did you bring them in so that they had the ownership and kind of were able to explore that themselves?
So yeah, this is what I mean by the, you know, the program or the research, if you like, unfolding by being in it. It was like me discovering that, oh, why don't I try this? Why don't I try that? How would it be if? And the more I found I got them into it, the more eager they were. You know, they all wanted to ring the bell. They all wanted to hold the incense, or they all wanted to light the candle. They all wanted to, and then it was like, okay, I can really just hand this program over, you know, and it is. It's just quite mind blowing, really. That whole thing around them leading the six directions, them leading ha ki roto mihi kia rangi nui kia papa tuanuku, and just being able to luxuriate in the beauty of what's happening here, because it's like, yeah, they took the ownership. And the more I could do that, the more that, and particularly as part of a ritual, I don't know, for me it was more the wairua was so much stronger
Mm,
around that notion of being being settled, being, and using a lot of those Maori, the concepts as well, like, when we're we can do anything. And this was one of the teachers that got that. She noticed that through the program that her kids were a lot more creative in their thinking and how
mm,
they expressed their thoughts. And she clicked onto this notion that because they're settled, they're not wee wawa. They're not all over the place. We
right.
live in, that education is so like bells are going off all the time. We're changing subjects. We're da 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 da. Just to have this moment to come deeply into ourselves,
Mm,
in my view, opens up our wairuatanga, our spiritual being, and
mm,
that's part of who we are as a whole. As
mm.
a whole, we bring our whole to the space.
Yeah. So with that rise of creativity, are there other things that you would comment on that you noticed kind of like well-being outcomes, kind of changes over the course of the program in, how the classroom felt and how the learners related to each other and to their, um, how did that, what kinds of shifts did you notice with their well-being?
Uh, well, I think that to me is the classic example of this boy going, "Don't you touch me," to
Mm,
embracing that open, and he's just a different boy. I'm like going, he just would, it was really like a number of them. We identified 8 in
mm,
that akumanga in that classroom. Me and the teacher, we sat down,
mm,
and I said, "Who do you think the hardest ones are to work with?" And we
mm,
went and we agreed, and then we said, what can we do, you know within this program, but also within your wider teaching, that's going to assist
mm,
change for them.
mm,
And it was like, for the teacher, using a softer voice,
mm,
praising them more, and not starting until everyone's settled, those sorts of things. But within the program itself, the notion of ritual, I mean, all those kids made quite significant shifts.
mm,
This is intangible, isn't it? You cannot tie down um, change through being. It's your observations, it's how you feel about what's going on here.
mm,
It's, how you notice. And it's even the same for the teacher. And the teacher was saying herself, you know, that she had colleagues coming up to her and saying, "Oh, your class is a lot more settled. I've just noticed
mm,
they're much more, settled and at peace." And there are always things to work on, aren't there? One of the
mm,
things that I've found sort of interesting within the dropping anchor was that, where do you go with it? How do you it's how do you kind of allow the space for them to really drop their anchor in ways that kind of resonate again with them, maybe not so much resonate, but really it is about their own self advocacy, them being
mm,
able to know themselves that they can stop this, they can stop their anger, they can stop their bad mouthing others, they can stop all these things. Is for me within the program, it has there's still ways to go on that one.
mm. So I know that there are plenty of people on this call who teach in English medium schools. although we have some, who are teaching in Te Reo and in Maori schools as well. But I was wondering, what advice or encouragement would you give them for what they can do to support Maori learners in a setting that is not exclusively Maori? Like, what kinds of encouragement would you offer to them for delivering the program?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm to English medium classrooms for me, and to Māori immersion, but I think the Māori immersion or kura, whatever, are about Māori being able to be Māori.
Mm.
And we don't want to box that. Māori, we're not homogenous. We come in all shapes and sizes, and iwi and hapu, and so we need to recognise that we aren't all the same, and that we don't all have the same tikanga. As Māori, we have tikanga. Māori is a post-colonised word. We were iwi prior to the arrival of the European. But anyway, the thing is that you want to be able to allow them to be, and this goes for any kids really, and this is my biggest statement is to allow kids to be whoever they are, and through that to be fully self-expressed, or allow them to bring out their full self-expression as they are and who they are. It is, this is another whole kaupapa to talk about, but it is, all those sorts of things help about learning te reo, about learning some songs, teaching songs. All those things are helpful, but in my view, what is the most important thing is your relationship with those kids, your authentic connection and relationships. And Pause Breathe Smile is a way to really galvanize those relationships, and particularly in relation to finding, they're connecting to them culturally as well.
Mm.
Does that kind of answer?
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. How relevant do you see Pause, Breathe, Smile as being in Kura Māori? Like, do you think that there's an interweaving or a kind of, bringing mindfulness in this way as being supportive to the work that is already happening in Kura, like the one where you work?
Well, first off, why, I met Grant ages ago, and we talked about, this, well, he talked about Pause, Breathe, Smile, and also just around Ao Maori Kōrero, and how, how this program can resonate more for and with Maori kids, particularly, as I said at the beginning. And for me, the whole a big part of the journey is that we, in Maori immersion education, need, not need or deserve to have access to this program as well. It's a beautiful program. There are lots of things that, as this project points out, that really resonate and that we can really adapt and use in different and use in ways that are they're much stronger in terms of that whole thing around identifying who we are as Maori and whoever that is for that particular kura and the way they run things. I know as well, I was part of the team that evaluated Pause, Breathe, Smile, ihi research, and worked in a Maori kura, and that was the same for them. They talked about how they were using the concepts and adapting them and using them within their own kaupapa. And yeah, so that's exactly what I'm finding too, that it's like, oh wow, that just lifts this to another level. But really, in a way, if I'm to be really bold here, this program challenges the way that education is. Because the program is centered in your well-being, and well-being for me is your mind, body, and soul. It includes your soul, whereas education mostly works around your mind and a little bit your body.
Yeah, so it's bringing that that holistic well-being approach with, you know, with Te Whare Tapafa and that whole, you know, seeing our learners and seeing ourselves as more than just brains with kind of a system that keeps us alive, that can carry us around, that we're actually, you know, and that those things are all interrelated. And that does challenge the kind of the status quo of sometimes what we are expected to do as teachers in the classroom, as well as what our learners are told is valued.
It's no different from, I mean, and you could apply this to any of the subject areas as well, like, but within the arts,
Mm,
the heart of the arts is wairua, is
mm,
being, and yet, you know, are we aware when we're teaching art of teaching to the being,
mm.
if that makes sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Well, I think we are close up on time. We did get a question from someone about whether resources are going to be available afterward. This call will be, you know, as I said, recorded and available on Facebook for people who who had to leave or want to rewatch it or want to share it with others. So that will be available. But also, we are currently, you know, working to develop with an aim to release more resources for the connections with Te Reo resources, as well as for different kinds of school settings. And we are very excited to be hearing from some from some Maori language schools who are saying, hey, we've actually already been trained in Pause, Breathe, Smile, but we would love to bring in some of these learnings from this initial pilot study, Rawiri, that you've done. So it's a really exciting time to be a part of this kind of project, this kind of program, and the ways that it is kind of spreading and becoming, you know, as you said, authentic in these different settings, that it is not a one size fits all. Here's the packaged program. Good luck to you. It's that there are a lot of supports along the way and new materials that are being developed that we are really excited about and looking to be, our aim is to roll out some significant new extension things for teachers to continue using after the program next year. And we are looking at more Te Reo resources. I think by the end of term 2 next year is our goal. That's our goal. That's what we're aiming for. Someone is asking, how do you translate pause, breathe, smile?
Oh.
Oh, it puts you on the spot.
Well, you know, there are different ways because it all is all iwi based again, but the official way of saying it is writing. Oh, is that back the front in your screens?
No, that's correct.
So this is a translation of the book for the tamariki,
Mm,
and that so it's how I can't read backwards. Whakamatua, whakangā, mene mene.
mm.
So that's, you know, that's one way of translating it.
Wonderful.
Tatari is another way. Tatari, wait. Haki roto, breathe in. Haki waho, breathe out. Mene mene. Mene mene is the only one I know for smile. Yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely. So I really have appreciated your time and your energy, and I'm hearing from someone that she's very excited about making Pause Breathe Smile more culturally sustaining and culturally responsive, and also hopefully with those resources coming out to support people, teachers at various levels of familiarity with Te Reo, right? That we don't want to just do a straight up translation, but to make a diverse range of levels of you know, language capacity, and also for, you know, teachers of all, you know, students from all backgrounds and all, you know, diverse identities. So I'm really excited that you've been here and that you've shared your wisdom and your perspective. And I just want to thank all of you for being here as well, for your participation, for bringing your questions and comments and participation. And thanks again to Southern Cross for their generous support of this call, as well as the entire program as a whole. The last two things I want to say, please do not forget to register for our next Whakawhiti Kōrero session. It will not be with Rawiri, alas, although there's more that we could talk about. But this one is going to be an across schools perspective with Rebecca Locke from the Manawatu Wanganui region. And Rebecca, many of you probably know, is a passionate advocate for mindfulness in schools throughout her region. And she's going to talk about implementing Pause, Breathe, Smile with her learners, but also about the vital need for Pause, Breathe, Smile, not just across a whole school, a whole kura, but over a region and a country, because of the frequency of learners, particularly who maybe have less stable backgrounds or less stable homes, that they move from school to school. So she's going to be sharing some perspectives on that important topic. The link to sign up is in the chat box. The date is the Thursday, November 18th, same time, same place. You won't want to miss it. And last but not least, please join our private Facebook group if you haven't already. It's a great place to chat with other educators around the country, to ask questions, to troubleshoot, to encourage each other. So thank you again so much, Rawiri, and thank you all for being here today. Kia ora.
Tēnā koutou katoa ngā mihi nui. Kia koutou I whakarongo mai nei.